All right, we are back. So, one of the things that made me want to take a look at Chainlink here was this article came out last Monday, and I don't know why my audio is going so high when I talk normally, so I'm trying to figure that out. But so what Chainlink has done is them and UBS Asset Management, UBS being I believe the United Bank of Switzerland, so it's a very large bank. So Swift, which is let's backtrack a little bit. So over the last few years or so, Chainlink has been trying to integrate blockchain technology with the common or the current bank stack. So how banks talk to one another. Currently, banks are using what's called Swift. Swift stands for Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunications. What Swift is Swift is a communication platform between the banks. So if I'm JP Morgan and I want to send money to Wells Fargo, I use Swift. Swift doesn't actually send the money. It just sends communication between the two banks of, hey, this is what I'm going to send you and this is what you owe. And then at the end of the week or at the end of the day, they use clearinghouses to sum it all up and then send it to each other and move it within their bank accounts, essentially. So you have Swift, UBS Asset Management, which is an arm of UBS, and Chainlink, the three entities. Swift, massive. It is probably the largest communication platform between banks in the world. You have BRICS, but that is a lot smaller, and that is the east side of the world. You have UBS Asset Management, UBS being a large bank, and Chainlink. So the three, Chainlink being one of the largest players in the crypto space, three large players successfully completing an innovative pilot to bridge tokenized assets with existing payment systems. That is huge, because if you know about how payment systems work, a lot of them are legacy based, a lot of them are older. A lot of these payment systems need to be updated. And if you've ever used an old system or an old gaming system and tried to connect it to a new TV, it can work. Sometimes they don't have the necessary plugins, whatever it may be. So getting the existing payment system, something that is wildly outdated, to bridge with the new payment system, decentralized networks on a blockchain network, to interconnect is massive. And so bridging, interconnecting, being able to use both in this pilot is massive for how the financial system is going to evolve going into the future. So as it says here, launch as part of the Monetary Authority of Singapore. So again, this is now a project that is a part of a country's initiative, so large scale. Their Project Guardian. This new pilot demonstrates how financial institutions can leverage existing Swift infrastructure to facilitate off-chain cash settlements for tokenized funds. So by that, they mean that they were testing how financial institutions could use the existing Swift infrastructure to move money around, not on-chain, but to settle these transfers that would happen. So the finalized transaction would appear on-chain, but the actual transaction took place off-chain. Something as to why this does matter is that banks, they operate within the realm of one another, right? If I'm a bank and my customer is using another bank, I need to talk to their bank and vice versa. Well, these banks are very private with what they do. They don't want people seeing everything on their balance sheet, everything that they own, or see what's going on and get a jump on what they're doing. So a lot of these banks as is not foretold, but a lot of people foresee, they're going to be operating what many think to be as private chains. So their own private blockchains within their domain, so that anybody using their network, anybody using their products, they can operate within this private chain of which the bank owns. So not only are costs kept low, but the bank can oversee and finalize every transaction that occurs on it. But the big kicker here is if you are a public entity or another private entity and you want to see, did UBS or did this bank mean or tell the truth when they did this, right? So this is going to allow these private chains, these private actions taken by these banks, to then bridge over to a public chain, let's say Ethereum, or even other private chains. So if I'm JP Morgan, I make this transaction, I also want UBS to see what happened so that they have it on their record of what occurred. I can use Chainlink or CCIP, which we'll get in later, cross-chain interoperability. CCIP is cross-chain interoperability protocol, but we'll get in that later. More about this article. So Swift, UBS, Asset Management, and Chainlink have successfully completed a pilot for settling tokenized fund subscriptions and redemptions using the Swift fund or the Swift network. That simply meaning that they've used this pilot to test selling or redeeming these funds, these settling of the tokenized funds. So just a tokenized fund would be, hey, I have a couple shares of SPY, which is an ETF, and it's an ETF that tracks an index. Instead of just doing this through TD Ameritrade or another broker on their book, in their business, we're actually going to have this fund tokenized so anyone can buy it anywhere as long as they have access to this network. And what does that look like when we buy and sell and redeem all these things, right? This initiative would enable digital asset transactions to settle with fiat payment systems across more than 11,000 financial institutions across over 200 countries and territories. That is huge. That is bringing these new form payment ways to the masses. And this is to what we were talking about a little bit before. Traditional fund operations often face inefficiencies in subscription and redemption process, including manual interventions, which we know if you've ever used a bank, delayed settlements. Again, banks are not very good at going quickly, and a lack of real-time transparency. And this real-time transparency, this is massive. This is what the banks and people, this is what we all want. We want to know what is going on. Are you telling the truth? Are you lying to us to get more money from us? What's going on? So this is going to revolutionize things on so many different levels. So these inefficiencies lead to increased operation costs, reduced liquidity, missed investment opportunities across the 63 trillion global mutual fund market. So while they are testing mutual funds here, which are not the same as ETFs, so this would not even be included in that number, they're saying that by using these new networks, by using Swift to interconnect using Chainlink, that they can reduce a lot of these costs, increase liquidity, which means we have a better overall efficient market, better prices, because there's less of a bid-ask spread, if you will. Excuse me, the bid-ask spread being more of a bid-ask spread, being that the bid-ask spread is what is someone asking for to sell and what is someone willing to buy it for, right? So you're going to have, if something is more liquid, there's more opportunity to buy and sell, which means that bid-ask spread is going to shrink, which means that you have a more overall efficient economy or marketplace, because people can get connected with other buyers and sellers. So the pilot showed how a financial institution can leverage blockchain technology the Chainlink platform and the Swift network to settle subscriptions and redemptions for tokenized investment fund vehicles. Okay, thereby allowing the straight-through processing of the payment leg without the need for the global adoption of the on-chain form of payment. This helps in the automation of the entire lifecycle of the fund redemption and the subscription process. So, what that is saying is that, let's say this fund is using Polygon's network, right? Polygon is a let's just say pseudo layer 2. These are all big words, and they're not important at this part in the process, but Polygon has its own token. What this is saying is that with Chainlink and Swift being able to connect to either these other networks or these other, let's say it's even another marketplace to buy and trade these things, Chainlink is allowing Swift to interoperate with these, CCIP, as we mentioned before, to interoperate with these networks without having to use the base currency that network is in. In this case, it's Polygon. So what their concern is they don't want people to have to go and buy Poly or understand how these networks use, but they want to be able to interconnect so that someone using, I don't know what the Singaporean currency is, but let's just say US dollars, since we own the US dollars, it's not going to worry about you having to go use or understand how Polygon works. As long as you know the US dollar, you can buy and sell and settle in US dollar. The pilot builds on work with UBS Asset Management and SBI Digital Markets to create a digital subscription and redemption system for tokenized funds. This initiative is also part of MAS Project Guardian, which is, remember, the Singapore project, a global cooperation between policymakers and key industry players to enhance liquidity and efficiency of financial markets through asset tokenization. Asset tokenization, forget what the project is about, is going to revolutionize how we interact with one another, how we trade assets, and the like. People abroad who aren't in the U.S. don't have the luxury of investing in the U.S. market unless they have a U.S. account, right? That's number one. You can just imagine how much more liquidity could be brought into the U.S. if we allowed people outside of the U.S. To invest like that at the snap of a finger in the U.S. market, right? But asset tokenization is bringing real world assets on chains, a car lease, a housing mortgage, and essentially digitizing it, putting it on chain. So now you have something that is a physical asset for the most part. Most of these assets are already digital. If you think about how our currency usually works or how it does work, 90%, 90, not 50, 90% of US dollars in circulation are already in digital form. In your bank account, in a fintech platform like Venmo or PayPal, there is not trillions of paper US bills getting handed out, right? This is all on a platform that's digitized. So the pilot used existing Swift infrastructure, which enables end-to-end payment orchestration capabilities to settle fund subscriptions and redemptions. Swift previously demonstrated how its infrastructure can provide a secure, scalable way for financial institutions to connect multiple types of blockchain, and this latest pilot with Chainlink's platform orchestrated the necessary interactions between each of the respective actors to fulfill the preconditions for which a UBS tokenized investment fund will automatically mint or burn fund tokens for investors. Key takeaways from this is basically saying Swift showed that this is all possible, but I want to jump to the end here where it says Chainlink's platform orchestrated the necessary interactions between each of the respective actors, let's just say multiple parties buying and selling, to fulfill the preconditions for which a UBS tokenized investment fund will automatically mint or burn fund tokens. Preconditions, meaning any parameter that UBS or other banks have set when they want to buy these funds, for which a UBS tokenized investments fund will automatically mint or burn fund tokens for investors. What does this mean? So mint, think of it as creating or making, and burn is to get rid of, burn, right? So why is this important? Why this is important is if your goal, let's just say, is a money market fund, right? Let's just say UBS has a money market fund. A A money market fund, for the most part, wants to remain parity with the dollar, so US dollar. For the most part, if you ever invested in a money market fund, they're probably investing in government bonds, or some even do AAA, like the highest rated bonds from companies. But for the most part, their idea is to stay 1-to-1 with the US dollar. So one share of a money market fund is always going to equal $1. What then can happen is the assets that these funds use, the money market funds are investing in, they can change in value. The reason money market funds don't often is because these are short-term liquid assets. People are always going to be buying government bonds. These AAA rated bonds are the highest of the high. They're usually with companies that have garnered huge public trust, so Microsoft, Oracle, the like. Anyway, what is then going to happen is that the underlying assets, so these bonds, let's say they're at $1, can either dip and go to 90 cents or up and go $1.10. Either way, they are no longer worth $1. But in the money market fund scenario, the goal is to always be worth $1. So if $1 is to equal one share, what needs to happen if the price of the asset goes up or down? You need to make more shares, right? So you will either have to mint more shares if the price of the underlying assets go up, right? So now every share is worth $1.10. If you make more shares, it's going to bring the price down so that you now have $1 per one share. Or if the price goes down, you have to burn more, thereby bringing it back to $1, right? Your shares are up here, your price is down here. We're going to burn the shares, equal it out. So that is all they mean by mint or burn. And then lastly here, it says for digital assets to be adopted globally, they must seamlessly integrate with both existing payment systems and digital currencies, the head of strategy at Swift. So our work with UBS Asset Management and Chainlink in this project leverages the global Swift network and bridge digital assets with established systems. This is something that I really want to point out here. Swift is, by all means of the word, the global payment platform. You have FedWire, which is the US. Banks can wire money to and from the Fed, but nearly every bank in the world at some point has used Swift, and if not, they are using it today. Why this is so important is banking is what helps the world operate day in and day out. Banks need money, companies need money, interest, housing, mortgages, companies, everything that moves needs money. Okay, you're with me this far. What happened when Russia had started the war in Ukraine isn't that we went in and started fighting and bombing everything. No, we simply said, sorry, you can't use Swift anymore. So what does this mean? Now those banks in Russia can't communicate with the other banks that operate using Swift. They cannot operate on the Swift platform because we took it away. It's gone. Russia then had to use other payment methods like BRICS and other intercommunication systems, but they were excluded from using Swift. And this is such a big deal because Swift essentially has a monopoly at this point on how these banks operate because it has become the dominant player in the space. What this will allow, for better or for worse, is it will allow banks to communicate. It will allow other systems to communicate with what's going on in banks, and it will let the public see how these trades are being finalized if they choose to use a public market maker or they choose to finalize those trades publicly. But this is just showing the evolution of how we are now opening these systems. We're cracking the hood a little bit on something that, is really behind closed doors. So this initiative aligns with our strategy to provide our community of financial institutions with a secure and scalable way to transact across multiple digital asset classes and currencies, leveraging Swift's existing infrastructure. Again, remember we said that it is super, super, super hard for companies to upgrade their technologies fast. Bank existing technology. I don't know if this is in regards to Swift, but we do know, and even being in the tech space, that a lot of those mainframes, a lot of those systems that banks are running on today is running on an old scripting language called COBOL. And you don't really have many people learning COBOL today and know how to fix those systems. So they're very, very ancient. And this is using an existing infrastructure and kind of revamping it, putting on new ornaments to be able to not only make it look better, but have it be used with newer systems, right? It's like going from analog to HDMI almost. And then lastly, the founder of Chainlink here, Sergey, has said Chainlink is enabling institutions to reuse Swift's infrastructure to facilitate payments for digital asset transactions. I am very excited by the upcoming adoption of these off-chain payment capabilities and how they will increase the flow of capital and expand the possible user base of digital assets. That is massive. It speaks volumes. And I think Chainlink is going to really, really, really impact how the financial payment systems operates today and going into the future. And so while this series, we will explore what Chainlink is, what their token is, how this network operates, I think this is a very, very pivotal start to this series. It really helps underscore how impactful Chainlink is. And even if you do watch these just for trying to invest, again, this is not investment advice, but if you do watch these trying to get more knowledge in that space, I think this is something that you need to keep an eye on, because whether for investments or not, this is something that's going to revolutionize how we interact with one another. And just understanding what goes into it is going to be massive. So that is all for today. Thank you so much for joining. And yeah, have a good one.